Alright, so this video is for Chapter 2, Lesson 2.7, Solving Proportions. Alright, so when we have a proportion, it is one fraction is equal to another fraction. As you can see, you guys have all done this before, I can guarantee it. You just cross multiply. And when you cross multiply, what happens is you can set the terms that are multiplied together equal to each other. So I've circled in red A and D. So A and D will go on the left side of the equation. And then they are just equal to C and B on the right side. And they are being multiplied by each other. That's why they are just written next to each other. So AD equals CB. And if you wanted to solve for any of the variables, you would just divide by the variable that's next to it. So let's say we wanted to solve for A. In that case, we need to get rid of this D right here. So what we'd have to do is divide both sides by that D, and we would get A equals CB over D. Okay, and why does cross multiplication work? Well, when we cross multiply, essentially what we're doing is we're trying to get rid of the fraction portion. So if we look at both the denominators right now, we have B and we have D. Now, if we multiplied both sides by BD, we would be allowed to cancel some stuff. So the B's over here on the left side would cancel, and the D's on the right side of the equation would cancel. So what we're left with is D times A equals C times B. And that's exactly what we wrote when we cross multiplied as well. Oops. AD equals CB. Okay? All right, so now we've got some practice for cross multiplication. So for this first problem, we've got 4 times 9 equals 3 times 12. Okay? And 4 times 9 is 36. And 3 times 12 is also 36, so that one works. Okay? Now, let's try it the other way. So we've got 4 and 12 as our denominators. So what we want to multiply both sides by is what's the product of 4 and 12. Well, that's 48, so let's multiply both sides by 48. Okay? So when we multiply by 48, this will cancel with the 4, and we're going to be left with 12. The 12 will cancel with the 48, and we're going to be left with 4. So we've got 3 times 12, which is 36, equals 9 times 4, which is 36. Okay, so either method will work. Okay, cross multiplication with variables. So in this case, what we want to solve for is x. Okay, so whenever we see a proportion like this, all you're going to do is just start with that cross multiplication. So let's start with the 4 and the x get circled. So this becomes 4 times x on the left, and the other cross multiplication is 3 and 8. So let's set that equal to 3 times 8. Okay, so 4 times x just becomes 4x. Equals, and now 3 times 8, that is going to be 24. Now we've got something that we can deal with. We just divide both sides by 4. Remember, because we want to get x by itself. So once we divide by 4 to both sides, these 4's cancel, and we're left with x equals 24 divided by 4 is 6. Okay? All right, cross multiplication with variables, more examples, okay? So let's try this one. We've got y and 5. That becomes 5 times y equals, and then we've got 3 and 3. So this is 3 times 3. All we have to do is divide both sides by 5, and we get y equals 3 times 3 is 9 over 5, or 9/5. Okay? All right, cross multiplications with variables and multiple steps. So this one's a little bit tricky, okay? But it's actually not any different than what we've been doing. So let's start with this one. Remember, you guys can start with either one, okay? Either cross multiplication. So let's do 5 times b plus 3. Remember, the entire numerator and the entire denominator go in parentheses, okay? That way, you know that you have to distribute, right? We see that we have to distribute that 5. The same thing is going to happen in the other cross multiplication. We've got b minus 8 times 4. So this is equal to 4 times b minus 8. So when you have multiple terms, make sure you are putting them in parentheses, okay? So now we distribute the 5 to the b, and we distribute the 5 to the 3. We get 5b plus 15 equals, the 4 gets distributed to the b, and the 4 gets distributed to the minus 8. 4b minus 32. From here, all we have to do is now simplify. So we're going to subtract 4b from both sides, and we're also going to subtract 15 from both sides. Okay? What cancels? Well, the 4b's cancel and the 15's cancel. So now we're going to be left with 1b equals negative 32 minus 15 is negative 47. So b is equal to negative 47. Because remember, 1b is simply b. Okay. Proportions. When you model a real-world situation with a proportion, you must write the proportion carefully. You can write the proportion so that the denominator have the same units and the numerators have the same units. Okay, so over here we have a correct example. We have 100 miles per 2 hours is equal to X miles per 5 hours. And we've also got an incorrect example, okay? 100 miles per 2 hours equals 5 miles or 5 hours over X miles. Guys, you notice how the hours do not line up with each other while they did over on the left? That would be writing the proportion incorrectly, okay? Make sure that your units line up. Make sure you have the same units in the numerator and the same units in the denominator. Okay, so proportions. An 8-ounce can of orange juice contains about 97 milligrams of vitamin C. How many milligrams of vitamin C are there in a 12-ounce can of orange juice? Write a proportion, okay? So whenever you're writing a proportion, something is going to be unknown. And right now, let's highlight what's unknown, and that's about how many milligrams of vitamin C are there in a 12-ounce can of orange juice. So let's create a variable x. So x is going to be our variable, and that's going to represent milligrams of vitamin C. Okay, so let's set up our proportion. So we started with 8 ounces of orange juice, and that had 97 milligrams of vitamin C. Okay, so since we set up our first proportion with ounces and milligrams, the right side of our proportion must be ounces over milligrams as well. Okay, now we don't know how many milligrams there are, so that's going to be our x, but we do know that it's a 12-ounce can that we're trying to figure out. So we write 12. All we do from here is we cross multiply. So let's write the green one on the left. We've got 8 ounces times X milligrams, and that will be equal to 97 milligrams times 12 ounces. Okay? So this becomes 8x on the left equals, and then 97 times 12. That is equal to 1,164. Guys, I did not know that off the top of my head. I used a calculator. And then if we divide both sides by the 8, we will be left with X equals 145.5 milligrams. Okay? Now, you might be wondering at this step, why did I write the units? I wrote the units because you always want to have the same units on the left side as you do on the right side. That means you set up your proportion correctly. So you see how I have ounces and milligrams on the left, and I also have milligrams and ounces on the right. We are good to go. It looks good. Okay, so we know that we solved it correctly. All right, now we've got a bunch of problems for you guys to try. The answers are on the next page, so go ahead and give those a try. And this is your exit ticket, so write down what you think Lisa and Jen's first step would be, and if both of their methods worked, and we're done. Here's your homework, and good luck.